25 minutes to make a name for yourself like you never made before.
Welcome back to Footy Classified. We'll get the apostrophe on the end of coaches next week, Hurdy.
Grammar.
So get the grammar right,
exactly.
get the punctuation. Hurdy, the Sydney Swans are the early focus of everybody. And
yep.
Take us through the agony and the ecstasy. This could have been the greatest day for John Longmire, and that is a picture in stark relief there of a person who had given his all and he's done. He had no more to give. That's after the grand final this year.
Well, I think the whole AFL world had a huge amount of respect for John Longmire and what he'd done. Yeah. The teams he'd built, the grand finals he'd been to, the premierships he'd won, and the coach he became. And the Swans last year thrilled us for most of the year. Thrilled us with their midfield, the way they got back in defence, the way they attacked to the midfield, and some really special games for the Swans. But when it came down to it, in the grand final, they collapsed.
All right, now you're going to take us through the defence. Let's hear from Dean Cox and what he's changing up for the Sydney Swans.
The way we defend. You know, I think probably towards the back end of last year and certainly the last day was not the level we want. So just the way we defend as an 18-man defence and how we go about that.
OK, 18-man defence. What have you seen that's different about the Sydney Swans' defence from last year?
There's no doubt their defence has changed in the way they defend, but the one thing I want to focus on first is their loose ball gets around the contest, getting more numbers of the contest, which Brisbane were better than them in the grand final. And as the year went on, they didn't do as well. 2023, they ranked number 3 in loose ball gets, which is all about how you get over the contest. 2024, they were almost last at 17, which is a big differential, and showed in the grand final they weren't allowed to win the ball, weren't able to win the ball enough around the contest.
So we talk about zone defence, we talk about flooding, pushing up, etc., etc. Take us through where it fell down for Sydney in the grand final.
Well, this is a stat that really hurt them. 42 uncontested marks in the first quarter, 145. That's unheard of. In a game of football, you try and keep a team to around 80 marks or less, and you think you're doing very well. They'd had 80 by half-time. And so what that said to me is Sydney weren't defending together as a team, and there's a lot of zone defence. This is a classic from the grand final. If you watch Brisbane here, they're obviously trying to keep the ball off Sydney. This first kick, this is when the Sydney Swans should try and pin them into this corner. Watch how many uncontested marks lead to the first Brisbane goal. So 1, Brisbane players just floating around, should have been closed down. 2, now is when you pin them into this corner. Right now you've got the opportunity to pin them here. Brisbane now start to slowly bring the ball through. It's enough opportunity. Sydney are defending as a zone rather than man-on-man close to the ball and then as a zone. Now watch here Ryan Lester as he moves through the contest past Sydney players, and this is the kick. No one picks him up, and then we can stop the vision as Ryan Lester's about to get the ball. If we just stop this here, the Sydney midfielders are playing a zone defence, the Sydney defenders are playing a man-on-man defence, leaves a huge hole. Ryan Lester gets the ball over, and Brisbane get their first goal, and on the way they go. Now,
and he could have kicked it to 3 players on that occasion.
Exactly. To my mind, what Dean Cox has been working on is that loose ball gets, but also a more tighter defence around the ball, a more man-on-man defence at the ball, and then zoning out and giving the chance. And this is what we see against the Suns in the last practice match, which the Swans, more condensed around the ball, close to the ball, send the Suns wide and watch Sydney try and compress them into the pocket. And then, as you'll see, get over to the ball, get the ball out of bounds, and that's a win. For Sydney, that's a win, keeping your forward half. That, to me, is the biggest difference between what happened in the grand final. We love watching Sydney play. That's the sort of play that can take them from being a grand finalist, severely beaten, to a premiership team this year.
And you could see Rowbottom took on 2 players there, held back, then ran up to block, and as the ball comes over,
it's all about your eyes, looking at the eyes, looking where they're going to kick it and try and defend properly. But I love what I saw from Sydney in that practice game.
So a lot of people are death-riding the Sydney Swans after 2 bad grand final losses. What do you see in them this year? Do you think they can go the next step?
Absolutely.
Can they win a flag?
I think, as I said, huge respect for John Longmire, did a great job, but I think Dean Cox is the man to take them all the way. And what I'm hearing out of Sydney is they're really buying into that team defence, and the players understand that that's the next step. Okay.